The following section is going to discuss the commercialization of technology through a number of different case studies. The first case study that we're going to talk about is Oxford Catalysts, an interesting example of needing to first progress the technological development and then the complex choices involved in deciding whether to license or spin out. The Oxford Catalyst story originates with the work of two Oxford academics, Professor Malcolm Green and Dr. Tianken Shaw. Professor Green is a senior academic who joined the Department of Chemistry at Oxford in 1963 and has been publishing papers on catalysts since 1975. These include a paper in the prestigious Journal of Nature in 1990 covering fundamental advances in partial oxidation catalysts. Dr. Tianken Shaw was Associate Professor and Vice Dean of the Environmental Engineering Department, joining Professor Green's team in 1999. By the year 2000, Dr. Shaw was able to produce catalysts with the same performance but lower production costs than those currently available on the market. At this point, the academics realized they had something of commercial value and so approached ICIS to explore the options for commercialization. A patent application was filed by ICIS in mid-2001 because there was clearly great commercial potential for the technology, which had Professor Green and Dr. Shaw as the sole inventors. It was decided to wait for the Patent Office's search report to assess the prior art and hence the novelty of the invention due to the complexity of searching prior art in the field of catalysis. Careful liaison between the academics and patent attorneys was required to draft the patent, which eventually involved a method of making catalysts and some of the end products themselves. It was necessary to generate a proof of concept in order to commercialize this further through either a license or spin-out. In 2001, the project was awarded £125,000 by the Oxford University Challenge Seed Fund to allow Dr. Shaw to spend 2 years further developing the technology. This work led to a second patent, but did not bring the technology to a point at which it was ready to be commercialized. Dr. Shaw managed to be awarded further funding in the form of a Business Development Fellowship, which funded work from 2003 to 2004 and produced a third patent. A final £25,000 was awarded by the University Proof of Concept Fund, which allowed a demonstration device to be produced and a fourth patent to be generated in the process. Not only did these three sets of seed funding allow the technology to be developed, but also had the benefit of generating additional intellectual property, which significantly strengthens the IP protection and investment value. In 2004, a decision needed to be made about whether to spin out or license the technology to an existing company. 2 of the patents related to petrochemical industry, while the other 2 related to the fuel cell sector. These sectors had different needs and required different routes to commercialization, but there was also a potential loss of value if the IP was split up. In both cases, significant investment was required, and Dr. Shaw was keen to carry on working on the project, and so it was decided to spin out the company. The spin-out would provide a vehicle to raise investment for the further development of the technology, and then allow the sale of products or license the developed technology to separate industries. The demonstration device proved invaluable for showing to investors. It consisted of 2 bottles of chemicals and a block of catalyst. When the tap is opened, it instantly produces steam and CO2, which enables a clean, instant, handheld source of steam that would be ideal for applications such as hospital disinfection. It was so effective that every investor who saw the demonstration expressed further interest. It was thought that at least £500,000 would be required to seriously develop technology, but more than £1.5 million at this stage would cause too much share dilution. Eventually it was decided to value the IP at £2.7 million and ask for £1.3 million in cash in return for 32.5% of the equity. Unfortunately, this approach was unsuccessful, and instead they ended up with a first investment round of £500,000 in December 2005, led by IP2IPO Group. 2 months after investment, a decision was taken to float the company on the AIM, which is the London Stock Exchange's market for small growing companies. The initial public offering, or IPO, occurred in April 2006 when the company raised £15 million at a valuation of £60 million. It continued to expand and raised further cash as needed. In 2008, a £10 million cash investment was raised to assist with the $35 million acquisition of Velocys Incorporated, which was considered to be the world leader in the design and development of microchannel process technology for the production of synthetic fuels and commodity chemicals, which would be a natural match for the Oxford Catalyst technology. Following the acquisition in 2009, the combined company currently has 90 employees. In 2012, the company started to offer commercial products with revenues of £3.6 million in the half year to June 2012, and is a market leader in the development of small-scale gas-to-liquid plants. To date, the company has raised approximately £300 million, including funding through their development partners. This project took nearly 5 years from the time that the researchers first approached ICIS to its investment and company formation. During that time, ICIS filed and paid for 4 patent families, and the university's seed funds invested £150,000. When the company floated, the university was able to sell some of its shares to generate money to put back into the seed fund and reinvest into other projects. For further information on Oxford Catalysts, please visit their website at www.oxfordcatalysts.com. Now we are going to discuss the story of Yasa Motors, a project that was so successful that there were eager customers before there was even a product, but then had the difficult task of forming a company to take the revolutionary designs to market. In early 2006, the UK government's Department for Trade and Industry part-funded a project called Lightweight Fuel Efficient Car, abbreviated to simply LifeCar. It aimed to demonstrate an efficient, high-performance fuel cell sports car. The project consisted of a partnership between a number of British companies and research institutes, which includes the legendary British sports car manufacturer, the Morgan Motor Company, Kinetic, Cranfield University, and Oxford University. Oxford's participation was by the Electric Power Group from the Department of Engineering, who would design the electric motors. There was a need to design an electric motor because no commercially available product existed off the shelf with an adequate torque-to-weight ratio that was also compact and robust enough for use in a sports car. After some initial work by the university's researchers, it quickly became apparent that in order to achieve the ambitious specifications of having each motor weigh less than 20 kilograms, whilst also giving the car up to 0.7 G of regenerative braking, they would have to start from a blank sheet of paper. A radically new design of electric motor is required, and after around 18 months of hard work, this resulted in the yokeless and segmented armature motor, or YASA for short. At this point, the researchers approached ICIS Innovation, given the obvious commercial potential of the project. The first task for ICIS was to try and protect the intellectual property on behalf of the university and researchers through a patent. Despite the revolutionary design, this proved a complex task because there is a great deal of prior art related to electric motors which generally share the same fundamental features and have been around commercially in various forms for over 100 years. With the help of expert patent attorneys, ICIS was able to file 4 separate patents which covered certain fundamental features of the design with the aim of providing a portfolio of patent protection to protect the intellectual property. Once the project had completed, the fully working LifeCar prototype was displayed at the 2008 Geneva Motor Show, attracting a great deal of publicity. So much publicity, in fact, that for a 6-month period, 50% of the inquiries that ICIS received through the website were concerning the Yasa Motor project. Many of these inquiries came from major automobile and aerospace companies who wished to buy a prototype for evaluation. The advantages of the Yasa motor was clear. With no stator yoke, it needed 50 to 70% less stator iron than a conventional design, and with short end windings, it saved 30% of the copper. Combined with a higher fill factor and improved cooling, it could typically deliver twice the torque and half the volume of a conventional design. The critical torque-to-weight ratio came in at 20 Newton meters per kilogram versus 10 Newton meters per kilogram from the nearest competitor. Electric motors are ubiquitous in the modern world, and although there were many possible applications for this radical new motor design, it was decided that the niche sport automotive sector, where the project started, would provide the ideal initial market. Before mass production is achieved and the technology is matured, markets that require low volume, high value components provide an ideal choice. Dr. Malcolm McCulloch, the head of the research group, provides a quick introduction to the technology.
We believe there's going to be a radical change in the automotive sector, where people are going to be moving away from fossil-based fuels such as petrol and diesel to alternative sources such as electrical-based or hydrogen-based. In order for these vehicles to be realized, we need a step in change and improvement in both battery technology, hydrogen technology, and also, more importantly, motor technology. We here at Oxford have been working on developing a new type of motors which allows us to have a lightweight, high-torque motor which is specifically designed for the automotive industry. So this technology is really brought into sharp focus when it was used in the development of the latest hydrogen sports car. This sports car, based around the Morgan's model, the Life car, really pushed the boundaries of the technology because we needed to have a motor which would not only develop high torque but also low mass. These two together allows us to have a very high performance machine. The success of the hydrogen sports car project has enabled us to be able to develop this technology for a wider range of applications. We now are having a lot of interest in order to develop this for very large scale renewable energy systems through construction size equipment, through sports cars, and even for small family cars. We believe this technology is going to enable the revolution in automotive technology for the future.
Despite the strong advantages of the technology and commercial demand, in order to progress the project towards commercial exploitation, it was necessary to refine the design so that it could be more easily manufactured and in line with market needs. In order to fund the design and manufacture of a new prototype, the project applied to the University Challenge Seed Fund and was awarded £75,000 at the end of 2008. With this money, they managed to develop a production-ready prototype that could be used for direct drive-on vehicles, weighing 25 kilograms, delivery of 125 kilowatts of power and 500 newton meters of torque in a light, reliable package that can be stacked together in a modular fashion. With a commercial prototype, not only does this make the IP attractive to licensees and a more attractive opportunity to investors, but it also opened up the possibility of specialist sources for the funding of the upscaler production. The UK Technology Strategy Board, or TSB for short, offered funding for projects that would take a proven concept and advance it to a stage where it was suitable for mass production, under the theme of ultra-efficient systems for the market advancement of electric and hybrid vehicles. The TSB funding is designed to help small or medium-sized companies develop technology as part of a multidisciplinary consortium with other participants from industry or universities. A consortium was assembled including the car manufacturer Morgan from the Life Car project, Semicron, who produce electric power control systems, and TRW Connect, who provide engineering, testing and consulting. Together, this consortium would be able to take the proven YASA concept and design it for mass production with extensive laboratory and vehicle testing. The development costs, including materials and work in kind by some of the companies, would cost £1.9 million, for which the TSB would provide £1 million to help offset these costs. The problem that was faced is that the YASA Motor project was not yet a company with a year of trading, but instead only a university research project waiting to be spun out once the money was available. In order to solve this problem, it was necessary to gain private investment that would ensure the spin-out, YASA Motors Limited, could operate for 3 years. In September 2009, a local private investment firm gave £1.45 million for an equity stake, and the company was formed to start the commercial development of the YASA motor design. It transpired that if the entire manufacturing process was outsourced at this stage, some of the IP would be lost, and that a low-volume production was necessary in order to satisfy the evaluation needs of the major market players. Therefore, the spin-out also provided low-volume production from its facilities on the Milton Business Park, located just south of Oxford. Remarkably for any spin-out, only a month later, YASA Motors made its first sale and continued to produce around 2 motors per month. A year later, production had increased to 10 units per month and steadily growing. In total, it took nearly 5 years from the start of the research project to the first sale, but with a great deal of commercialization activity happening in 2009. To learn the latest about the company, please visit their website at www.yasamotors.com. The following case study is based on Oxford Nanopore Technologies, now a private company headquartered in Oxford. This highlights the timescales involved in bringing bioscience-based technologies to market, and that the spinning out of university technology is in many ways just the start of the commercialization process, not the end. Let us begin with a short background on the core technology upon which the company is based. Oxford Nanopore Technologies is developing an exciting technology platform for the label-free direct electronic analysis of single molecules. The technology has a broad range of potential applications, including DNA sequencing, protein analysis for drug development or diagnostics, security and defense, environmental monitoring, and much more. At the heart of the system is a protein nanopore that enables identification of single molecules. This model shows a typical nanopore formed from protein. You can see that at the center of the protein there is a hollow tube that is only a few nanometers in diameter. Oxford Nanopore designs and manufactures bespoke nanopore structures for a range of applications. In nature, nanopores form holes in membranes. In Oxford Nanopore systems, the nanopore is inserted into a membrane created by a synthetic polymer. This membrane has very high electronic resistance. Here you can see a nanopore piercing a single hole in a membrane made from synthetic polymer. A potential is applied across the membrane, resulting in a current flowing only through the aperture of the nanopore. Single molecules that enter the nanopore cause characteristic disruptions in the current. By measuring that disruption, the molecule can be identified. The nanopore may be adapted for different analytes, including DNA, RNA, proteins, and small molecules, and may be used to sequence entire genomes. In order to create a high-throughput system, a number of nanopore experiments can be conducted at the same time by using an array chip. Multiple microwells are fabricated onto an array chip using standard semiconductor materials. These arrays may be scaled according to need. The user may require tens of channels to hundreds of thousands of channels, depending on the application. This array chip is built into a consumable cartridge, which also contains the fluid that is required to run the chip. The company has also designed an electronics-based platform, the GridION system, for data analysis. The analyte is added to the cartridge, which is then used in conjunction with an instrument, the GridION node, for real-time data collection and analysis. This enables the scaled-up measurements of multiple nanopores and the sensing, processing, and analysis of data in real time. The array chip is also designed to be used inside the miniaturized MinION system instrument, which can be plugged directly to a laptop or desktop computer. Oxford Nanopore was founded on science developed in the research groups of Professor Hagen Bailey, who previously was based at the University of Massachusetts and Texas A&M University, later becoming Professor of Chemical Biology at the Chemistry Department in Oxford in 2003. Professor Bailey is one of the world's leading experts in membrane protein engineering and stochastic sensing, with over 180 journal publications and 9 patents. Oxford Nanopore has since formed relationships with a range of additional institutions, including Harvard and the University of California, Santa Cruz, Boston University, and more. His work with Oxford Nanopore showed for the first time that nanocores can identify all 4 bases of DNA, which opened the possibility of using nanopores in DNA sequencing. In 2005, with the backing of IP Group and the help of ICE Innovation, Hagen founded Oxford Nanopore Technologies, then called Oxford Nanolabs, to develop his ideas into industrial products for commercialization. The university contributed in other ways too. Its Bedford Science Park would provide office and laboratory space for Oxford Nanopore from July 2006 to 2009. During that time, the workforce rocketed from just 6 to 70 staff. Science parks such as Begbrook can help new companies by providing flexible space and short-term leases that can be adapted to suit the company's needs at its different stages of development. They also provide an environment that fosters innovation by having close access to the university and access to on-site business support services. Since then, Oxford Nanopore has continued to develop a broad patent portfolio through in-house development and licensing agreements with third parties. Oxford Nanopore has an intellectual property portfolio of more than 300 issued patents and patent applications in over 80 patent families. These cover all aspects of nanopore sensing, including fundamental patents for nanopore sensing and patents relating to DNA sequencing. The company now has more than 130 employees from multiple disciplines, including nanopore science, molecular biology and applications, informatics, engineering, electronics, manufacturing and commercialization, in its headquarters in Oxford, as well as in Cambridge, New York and Boston. The management team, led by CEO Dr. Gordon Sanghera, has a track record of delivering disruptive technologies to the market. Gordon brings his experience of combining biological and electronic technologies. He previously delivered blood glucose sensing products to the market, a technology that has transformed the lives of diabetes patients worldwide. Gordon now leads an experienced management team towards the development and commercialization of a new gold standard in DNA sequencing products. An obvious question to ask is, how has the company managed to grow so much? To answer this, let's look at the funding history of Oxford Nanopore. This is a platform technology with a good patent portfolio and an academic experienced in working with industry. To date, the company has raised over £105 million in several rounds of private funding from a combination of private and institutional investors. The company does not have traditional venture capital investment. Instead, the investor profile more closely mirrors that seen of publicly listed companies. Seed funding was obtained in 2 rounds from IP Group in 2005. In June 2006, the company raised £7.5 million, and in March 2008, the company raised a further £10 million. In January 2009, the company announced a £12 million investment from Illumina and a separate commercialization agreement for its exonuclease sequencing technology. In this round, an additional £2.1 million was raised from other sources. In February 2010, Oxford Nanopore raised £17.4 million, and in April 2011, the company raised £25 million from existing and new institutional independent investors based in the UK and US. In May 2012, a further £31.4 million funding round was completed, bringing the total amount raised since the company was founded to over £105 million. There are various lessons that can be learned with regards to funding of university spin-outs. One noticeable feature about the funding sequences for the Oxford Nanopore case is the high level of seed funding. It is very important to be able to raise enough cash, particularly in a company's early development stages. Having access to seed funds can greatly aid a company's development. Oxford Nanopore also benefited from having rapid funding rounds. This was fueled by having an experienced team, by advancing the technology, by effectively showcasing these advances and the benefits of the technology to investors, and by using the properties of the foundation science to develop products with novel properties that are highly desired by end users. All of these aspects need to be addressed when looking for additional sources of investment. Additionally, many of the initial investors participate in subsequent funding rounds. Whenever possible, this works well for both parties because it helps avoid discrepancies and complications from additional stakeholders. Oxford Nanopore Technologies is now approaching the market with a disruptive technology. If you're interested in the technology or want further information, please visit their website at www.nanoporetech.com. The ICES software incubator was established in autumn 2010 to complement ICES' existing spin-out process in recognition of the rise of software IP based on copyright and know-how only, and the growing ambition of young researchers and students to develop their own business. Projects that are suitable for the incubator are those that require substantial work to develop further IP and build a realistic commercial prospect, have entrepreneurial founders who are willing to invest the significant necessary effort to develop the idea into a venture in their own time, but does not require immediate external investment or a dedicated full-time CEO. Ventures that are accepted into the incubation program receive dedicated support from day one, including commercial mentoring, intellectual property advice, assistance in identifying potential customers, inquiry handling, and advice on the formation of a limited company. We also provide our ventures 24/7 access to joint development space and shared IT facilities. As of early 2013, we have 16 ventures in various stages in the incubator. Some joined us right at the inception, and some a bit later down the line. While they all share software as their theme, their application fields vary from energy usage analysis through to text analytics, to social media networks and data analysts. We will now hear from two of the projects. The first project, UniCreate, is in the early stages of the incubator, while the second, iMotiva, is at a much later stage and is currently seeking funding.
Hi everyone, I'm Nitin Gupta. John Woods and I co-founded UniCreate, one of the newest ventures to enter the software incubator. To tell you a little bit about my background, I recently completed my MBA from Said Business School at Oxford University. Previously, I was working for a financial risk industry for about 6 years as a global product manager in New York. Even when I was in the corporate environment, I always used to wonder why things would take so much time to solve some of the most basic problems. The challenge was not about understanding the problems or to come up with the possible solutions, but the challenge was to harness the right mix of resources at the right time. Even during my time here at the university, I've seen the trend carrying through. Being a powerhouse of all these ideas, research, skills, as well as knowledge, I don't think the universities are short of talent. Then what exactly is the problem with the innovation as well as entrepreneurship? Universities such as Oxford are witnessing accelerated growth in demand for initiatives which would fuel innovation and entrepreneurship. We have seen multiple incubators, accelerators, as well as various networks being set up in and around the university. But little has been done in order to fuel the development of these early stage ideas and innovation. There are a lot of avenues which are open once an idea shapes into a project or a prototype, but hardly 5% of those ideas go through that stage. And what happens to the 95% remaining ones? Nobody even comes to know about it. When we try and assemble the analogs and the antilogs which are available in the current industry, we'll realize that an individual has to go through multiple phases, from an idea generation all the way to the execution. Now, of course, the entire industry has evolved tremendously over time, and it offers multiple platforms, tools, resources at every stage of the development itself. One can brainstorm an idea using Wazoku, or connect with an investor on Cedars, or for that matter, Gust. Or you can even network with the entire LinkedIn community while forming your team with the tools such as Know-How Mart, and you can even acquire some of the skills and the knowledge using Coursera or Treehouse. It all sounds fantastic. Then what exactly is the problem? Now, the problem where I see is because despite being an elaborate menu of choices available to the users, there isn't any one-stop solution. And that makes the current process very long, tedious, and ineffective. With that also comes an issue of who do you really share the information with? Do you share it with some random network groups? Or do you share with the entire LinkedIn community? Or would you rather share it with a small focus group of individuals who can really add value to your idea? With that comes a very vital element called trust. How do you really build trust in a group of individuals that you're sharing information with? So all in all, when you think about these problems and try and put them into perspective, we all realize that an individual spends an awfully long time worrying about writing reports, business plans, documentations, as well as investor PowerPoint or slide decks, rather than investing all the time in developing the business itself. And majority being students and researchers who tend to bail out before even getting started because they lack those resources and skills. And that's why UniCreate, we intend to provide the answer to these problems. In order to validate our hypothesis, we reached out to the larger audience across the different departments and divisions in the university. We spoke to students, academia, researchers, and staff. And this is what some of them had to say. The list of problems and challenges which they all have been facing goes on. Like how we asked one of the entrepreneurs, and he mentioned that networking, events, and platforms are good, but they're not productive because they don't really address the specific needs. One of the designers who's interested in social entrepreneurship happened to mention that the hardest thing for them is to figure out the right partners. And they're even apprehensive about sharing information on the public domains. One alumni who happens to work in the clean tech industry mentioned about the role of angels and VCs in the current marketplace. They're spending a lot more time and money in getting ready these startups itself rather than investing money in these startups, which is their core activity. And the list goes on from somebody facing a problem into expanding the model into emerging countries just because he can't find the right person or the individual. Or for that matter, people getting very frustrated about repeating the information about the business plans on multiple platforms because there isn't any single solution available. So why UniCreate? And what exactly is UniCreate? UniCreate is an entrepreneurial ecosystem which brings together collaborative communities of ideas, skills, and funds of talented individuals in a very community-driven environment of what we call the university colonies. Through UniCreate, we aim to simplify the process of innovation and entrepreneurship by making it simpler, easier, cheaper, and faster. The way we do that is by providing necessary tools and resources for individuals to help them in their early stage business development. UniCreate, being a role-based platform, works on 5 key pillars. The first of them, most important, being the process of ideation itself. By bringing together the network of ideators who can bring in their novel ideas or even some of the most simplest ideas which can solve some of the most peculiar business needs. Together, we also bring a network of crackerjacks, people who are experts or who have knowledge and skills in their respective industries, markets, or sectors. It also brings together the third key element, which is the financial resources through backers. Together, it also provides a platform where you can test out the product or the service with an audience large enough in the form of networkers. And all this comes together in a form of a cohesive, collaborative environment on what we call the colonies. For example, University of Oxford being one of the colonies. As far as the timeline of a product is concerned, we launched over a month and a half ago what we call the basic prototype or the alpha version. We launched this version to about 100 or so university users who are very keen in entrepreneurship and innovation. We launched the version with some of the most basic features, but enough for us to kind of test out the product itself. Features included providing the user base itself, providing some of the profile information, providing some of the search filters across ideas as well as individuals based on role, sectors, geographies, etc., as well as some of the team formation tools. Our main objective being that we want to gather as much feedback as possible from these test users and incorporate that in the beta plan, which we plan to launch in the next 4 to 6 months. Our aim for the beta plan would be to create an integrated solution which can offer tools and resources for users across the university and who can take their idea forward from inception and make them product or service ready for the test market. Talking about ISIS, being a part of the ISIS incubator has been very helpful in our early stage development process. Besides availing some of the services including legal and accounting, ISIS has been instrumental in creating workshops to develop our soft skills ranging from how to manage the early stage businesses to developing our own social media strategies, which can be very critical for a business like ours. One thing that I find extremely useful at the incubator is working with other incubatees. Knowing that all of us having gone through the same process, the same situations, it is a lot easier for us to exchange information, to exchange experiences as well, be it good or bad. And that's how we learn from each other's mistakes. Needless to say, that ISIS, having opened its doors to a lot of network connections as well as resources, has given us a tremendous opportunity to create UniCreate. And with that help, we hope to create a sustainable and a viable business.
Hello, my name is John Stewart. I'm the CEO and founder of iMativa, and we're a member of the ISIS Software Incubator. Today I want to talk to you a little bit about the history of iMativa, but specifically from the perspective of why did we decide to join an incubator. I'll talk to you about what we do as a business and how that relates to our previous experience, which again lets you see why we joined an incubator. And I'll also talk to you about how we would rate the incubator experience based on what we were trying to achieve from it and then what we actually got from it. So firstly, my name is John. I come from 20 years of business experience working in blue chips, and this is actually my fourth startup now, so I've been through the mill. You'd expect that with that kind of background I would not need an incubator, but the reason for joining it was because it was going into an area I didn't know that well, and it was also going into what was going to be quite a complex startup if we couldn't get traction in some of the key elements of the marketplace. Similarly, my colleagues who'd all come from a similar background to me realised that they were unable to fill that gap as well, which meant that we had to go looking. From a history perspective, we formed the business in March 2011. We started building a prototype which we launched in February 2012 in Western Australia, which went down very, very well. In fact, the charity that rolled out iMativa in Australia picked up $1 million of Australian government funding to continue rolling it out. We then came back and brought the product back to Oxford again, and that's when we had to make the big decision. Is this the time to start giving up a percentage of the company? Is it worth giving up 10% to join the incubator, and what would we get from it? So we looked at that long and hard, and I'll come to the reasons why we ended up joining. So after we joined the incubator, both ISIS and ourselves put more money into the development of the product. That gave us the confidence that we could move forward to the next stage, which was to get it ready for our live launch in September of 2012. Since then, we've acquired a number of organisations that have enabled us to start to go beyond an initial prototype into a more extensive prototype and rollout of the software and the platform. We're currently in the stage of additional seed funding, and we're working with external investors. So what is iMativa? iMativa is essentially a reward scheme. We're the air miles of fitness. If you understand Nectar, Boots points, anything else of that nature, then we're doing a very similar thing. But the only way you can get access to these points is by doing something fit and healthy. If you like walking or cycling or going to the gym or canoeing or anything that can be tracked by either a mobile application, by an instructor, or by your membership card when you enter a building, we aggregate all of that data into one place for you, and we reward you for taking part in exercise. The data is in demand from various sources. We're working with sports operators up and down the UK. They're providing this reward scheme to their members, and we're also working with brands who want to connect to our consumers, and working with employers who want to be able to offer this as part of a well-being scheme. The problem that we're trying to solve, and the reason for existing for us, is that we know that in the UK alone, 72% of women and 59% of men don't do enough exercise. The NHS believe it's costing the UK £8.2 billion per year in lost income from sick days, from healthcare costs, and for any nature of problems that are related to our modern lifestyles. We're trying to resolve that in one small part by getting people to exercise more through rewards. It's not something that's new. Rewards for exercise have been around for a while. In fact, they've been proved to work. The biggest problem of all, though, is until the last couple of years, there's not been the ability to track accurately what people have been doing. We know that people respond to rewards. The academic research tells us so. So what we've done is we've created a solution that allows you to connect whichever fitness app you like, whether you prefer Garmin or Nike Plus, whether you want to go to this particular gym or that particular gym, or want to go to multiple places. You can bring all of your fitness activity into the one place, and we track what you're doing. We only do it for things that are GPS tracked. You cannot enter things manually, and we also have written the algorithms to spot people who are trying to fraud the system. Once we have your data, you're then comparing yourself to other people in a similar position. They might be of a similar demographic, they might be of of the same gender, they might be from the same area, they might be your friends or people you've never known. That aspect of our business is the motivational side. So we get people from an early stage. If you're very new to exercise, we'll take you through a 12-week program of both challenges and rewards. If you've been doing exercise for a while, we can connect you with other people that are like you to help challenge you and keep you doing the same thing. Or if you're just returning to exercise, we can show you where you left off before and help you pick up. The types of rewards we have are everything from experiences such as trips away, to hotel vouchers, to sports gear, to music, anything you can think of, including the local high street. So we have local businesses participating in the scheme and offering up rewards as well. So the important thing for us, when you look at our backgrounds in the consultancy world where this first spawned, was we realised that this was a multi-dimensional market, and to be able to get something off the ground was going to require funding, of which we'd never gone through the investment process before. We were very new to seed capital, to Series A funding, Series B, and we needed some expertise behind us. We knew and we believed the market was there. We'd been working in the space previously, but this was a new dimension that if this company was to be successful, we needed help, which is why we came to an incubator. The reason why we chose the incubator is we said, well, what is it that what do you need in a business? And we worked out that we needed formal networks of people. We needed to connect into the right type of networks of individuals that would enable us to grow the business. We wanted people that had previous startup experience, not necessarily directly in this space, but from similar types of company that could give us advice. We also wanted what I call a method of startup. So if you think of the true context of an incubator, it's to try and grow something within a controlled environment. So we were looking for that control, for the mechanisms around the business that could help us grow. And ultimately, we're really looking for investors. In fact, lots of investors, at least the access or to be able to give them a list of people, go and speak to these people, they may well be interested in your business. More so than you could perhaps have done if you were just one more name on another crowdfunding site. So we needed that aspect of this as well. The next thing we wanted was, we were able to fund the business up to a certain point, but we were looking for a partner to come on board, whether it was through equity, convertible loans, or grants. And in the context of ISIS, we were able to get all of that. And finally, we were looking for the connection to other individuals that were running businesses like ours, who we may be able to share resources, we may be able to do things together, and we found that as well. So in terms of the experience within ISIS, the main aspects for us, the good and the bad and the ugly, were we found that the networks have been fantastic. We're glad we chose this particular incubator because it had a substantial name in Oxford University behind it. And us dealing with sports operators and being able to get as a startup company over that first hurdle of who are you, where are you from, and who's behind you, that has done a huge amount for our business in terms of being able to speak to people. And we believe that without the ISIS connection with Oxford University behind it, we may never have been able to acquire some of our initial contracts. Secondly, the starting up under a method, it's a bit of a mixed bag. I think the UK's approach to incubators at the moment is probably quite a few steps behind what you'd find in Silicon Valley. We found that decisions about should we invest into IP protection here or a trademark or to look at this part of the actual business, that was perhaps lacking a bit in terms of what should we do. There was a lot of hands-off that I think as the incubators in the UK grow, more of that will come through in terms of the experience to say, this is probably the wrong time to spend money on that particular element of your business. You may want to direct it here. Having said that though, the access to both legal teams and accountancy teams has been phenomenal. ISIS have done a fantastic job of negotiating those deals. We have access to a level of skill that most small businesses couldn't even dream of, which has meant that we've been able to make a lot better decisions as well. So in terms of where we are now, we came into the incubator in June 2012. At that point, we had launched a pilot in Australia that had gone well. That had given us the confidence to move forward, and I think had proved to ISIS that we were able to move forward as a business. At that point, we spent the summer refining our user experience and really looking at what was important at that particular time for the budget that we could actually afford. By September 2012, we'd launched and we started developing business with sports operators, charities, social enterprises, our first tranche of customers that were willing to roll this out for their members as well as continuing to acquire members through just mobile phone apps, etc., that we were connected to. By December 2012, we now have 6 organizations which between them have over 4 million users who are now wanting to connect to our platform. It means that the success of the incubator for us has been achieved. We knew what we wanted to do. We were able to do it through the incubator. There was some good times and rough times during that period. There were some bits that could probably have been facilitated a lot easier, but we know that the incubator process for us has really helped our company. The stage we're at now is we're looking for our next round of investment, which is much larger seed investment prior to going to Series A. And the incubator has been good at being able to generate interest in their network of investors. What I would say, however, is that a software incubator is very different to a science incubator or a technology incubator. You cannot have the same sorts of investors. They are very different people, and I think ISIS, which was a new software incubator only a year ago, has had to find a brand new set of people, investors, to come along to meetings with us. So what we found is that we've gone through that as guinea pigs in some ways, but again, the ISIS name has brought people to us and allowed them to speak to us. We haven't had to go out running around and trying to find them. What it has identified, though, for a small business in the UK is that there is a gap. ISIS has filled a gap that takes you up to a certain size of funding. Then you have the gap where there's not many people playing, or at least the market for investment, which you'd call angel, doesn't exist that well doesn't exist very well in the UK. And we found that there's the early stage VCs are too high up, the incubators don't go high enough, and it leaves you with a funding gap in the middle. That would be my biggest challenge for all incubators in the UK, is to find a way of filling that gap with additional funding of still relatively early stage, but not idea stage, but also not at metric stage, which VCs are looking for. So finally, I'd say that if I was to score the incubator on all of its points, I would say that they'd be well up into the 4 out of 5 stars in terms of what they've achieved. They do take a percentage of the company, but I think on balance they're worth the money. Thank you.